Apple owned the AI assistant on more than 1 billion phones 8 years before ChatGPT existed. Today, OpenAI is worth more than the entire iPhone hardware margin. Stop and think about that for a second. The most valuable company on the planet with the longest head start just lost a category they invented. The most expensive miss in modern tech history. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how Apple invented the assistant of the future, handed the lead to OpenAI, and what every business owner watching can learn from it. Enjoy. So let's set the stage. In April of 2010, Apple bought a tiny startup called Siri for around $200 million. 18 months later, on October 4th, 2011, Steve Jobs sat on a stage and showed the world a phone that could talk back. The iPhone 4S. The S, by the way, was for Siri. That was the entire flagship feature of the launch. Apple was the first major company on earth to put a real conversational assistant in the pocket of every customer. They had the data, they had the distribution, they had the money, they had the brand, they had the talent, and they had a 7-year head start on the rest of the planet. So how did they lose it? Now, to be clear, OpenAI did not exist when Siri launched. ChatGPT didn't ship until November of 2022. That means Apple had 11 years where they were the dominant voice assistant on the most successful consumer product in history. 11 years. Think about that. 11 years where every iPhone owner asked Siri what the weather was, set a timer, called their mom, and slowly, quietly learned that Siri was kind of dumb. And then in 1 quarter, ChatGPT did 50 million users in 2 months and rewrote the entire category. Apple's 11-year monopoly evaporated in about 90 days. So here's the question that should be keeping every business owner up at night. How does a company with the largest distribution channel in human history, sitting on more cash than most countries, lose a category they literally invented? 3 reasons. And the third one is the one that's going to actually change how you think about your own business. Reason number 1, Apple optimized for control over capability. Siri was built to do a small set of things really safely. Set a timer, send a text, skip a song. Apple's product culture was built around the iPhone as a closed garden, and they treated Siri the same way. They restricted what it could say, they restricted what it could connect to, they restricted who could build on top of it. Try this on your phone right now. Ask Siri to summarize the article you are reading. It cannot. Ask Siri to draft an email in your tone of voice. It cannot. Ask Siri to plan your weekend based on the weather and your calendar. It cannot. ChatGPT can do every one of those things, and most of them on a free account. The reason is not technical. It is cultural. Now, control isn't bad. Control is what made the iPhone the highest margin consumer product ever made. But control is the wrong setting for a category where the winner is whoever ships the most capable system the fastest. OpenAI shipped a model that would talk about anything, do anything, integrate with anything, and break sometimes in public. Apple shipped a model that would not embarrass them in a keynote. One of those companies is now worth $500 billion. The other still can't reliably set a multi-step reminder. Reason number 2, Apple treated AI as a feature, not a category. Inside Apple, Siri was a service that lived under the iPhone org. It reported up through the same management chain as the camera and the keyboard. That meant the headcount was small, the budget was small, and the strategic priority was small. Compare that to OpenAI, where the entire company is the product, and every single dollar, every engineer, every GPU, every press release exists to make the model better. When you make a thing a feature inside a bigger product, you cap the ceiling on how good it can ever be. The team will always be too small, the compute budget will always be too thin, the internal politics will always lose to whatever else the parent product cares about that quarter. So if you want to know whether your company is going to win a category, look at where it sits on the org chart. If it's a department, you're going to lose to someone for whom it is the whole company. Reason number 3, and this is the one, Apple confused incumbency with innovation. When you are number 1, when you have the cash, the brand, the distribution, and the talent, it is almost impossible to feel a sense of urgency. Why would you panic? You already won. So Apple watched Google launch Bard, they watched Microsoft put GPT into Bing, they watched Anthropic raise billions, they watched Meta open source Llama, and for almost 2 years, the public response from Apple was essentially silence. Tim Cook would say AI was being woven into every product, but the products did not change. The keynotes did not change. The hiring did not change. Now, the inside of Apple was not silent. We know, because journalists eventually got the story, that the engineers were screaming about how far behind Siri was. The leadership was just slow, and slow is the disease of every dominant company. You confuse the size of the moat for the size of the lead, and one day you wake up and the moat is empty because the river already moved. So here's the punchline. Apple did not lose the AI race because they were stupid. Apple has some of the smartest engineers on the planet. They lost because they were comfortable, They lost because the same playbook that won the smartphone war was the wrong playbook for the AI war. And nobody at the top was willing to say, the playbook is wrong, we need a new one, we need it now, and we need to look stupid for 2 years while we figure it out. Now this matters for you because every single business owner watching this video has at least one place where they are running the Apple playbook. You have a product that is winning, you have a category that is shifting, and you are using the moves that worked 5 years ago because they worked 5 years ago. I'm going to give you 3 tactical things to do this week to figure out if you are about to be Apple. Number 1, write down the one capability your customers are actually paying you for, not the feature list, not the product, the one job. Then ask, is that capability going to be commoditized in the next 24 months? Not the next 10 years, 24 months. If the answer is yes, you have a shrinking window and the size of your current revenue is lying to you. Number 2, look at where the work on your most important capability sits on the org chart. Is it owned by one team with its own head, its own budget, and the authority to make trade-offs? Or is it a feature inside something else, sharing roadmap meetings with logos and onboarding flows? If it's the second one, you are doing the Apple Siri thing. The fix is not a memo. The fix is a separate team with a separate boss and a separate budget. Anything else is theater. Number 3, find the embarrassing version of your next product and ship it. Apple's mistake was waiting until Siri was safe enough for a keynote. ChatGPT shipped while it was hallucinating wildly in public and the public taught it how to be useful. The lesson is not ship garbage. The lesson is your customers learn faster than your strategy team. You need them inside the loop. So pick a thing your team has been polishing for 9 months, cut it in half, ship the half that scares you. Watch what happens. How? The companies that win the next decade are going to be the ones that are willing to look unfinished in public for a while. I want to say one more thing about Apple because I don't want this video to land as a hit piece. Apple is not dead. Apple is one of the great companies in business history, and the iPhone is still the highest margin consumer product ever made. They still have the distribution, they still have the cash, they still have the talent. They can absolutely still win the device layer of AI, where the model lives in your pocket, runs offline, and knows your private data better than any cloud system can. That is a real shot, and it is consistent with everything Apple is good at. But here's the brutal part. They will not get back the assistant category. That ship sailed in November of 2022, and Sam Altman was on it. The most Apple can do now is build the best second place experience and charge a premium for the privacy, which by the way is a great business. It is just not the future they invented. So let's compress the whole video into one frame. The most expensive mistake in modern tech history was made by the smartest company in the world with the most cash, the best brand, and the longest head start. They did not lose because the technology was hard. They lost because they optimized for control instead of capability, treated the new category as a feature inside the old one, and confused incumbency with innovation. And every single one of those mistakes is a mistake you can make in your own business this quarter. If you want to gut check your own situation, write down the 3 reasons we just covered. For each one, score yourself 1 to 10 on how much you are running the Apple playbook right now. If your average is above a 5, you have homework. If it is above a 7, you have a fire. And the fire is not going to put itself out because you are profitable. But here is what makes Apple's mistake unforgivable. Microsoft saw the exact same thing Apple saw at the exact same time. The same threat, the same opportunity, the same disruption. And Microsoft made the opposite bet. In 2019, 3 years before ChatGPT existed, Microsoft put $1 billion into OpenAI. In 2023, they doubled down with another $10 billion. They did not wait. They did not ask whether the technology was ready. They did not insist on perfect alignment with their existing product roadmap. They wrote the check, they took the seat at the table, and they bet the company on a thesis they could not fully prove. Now to be clear, Microsoft is not a small underdog. Microsoft is also a giant incumbent the same size as Apple, with the same comfort, the same brand, and the same cash. So why did one giant freeze and the other one move? The answer is the CEO. Satya Nadella took over Microsoft in 2014 with a single explicit message. We are no longer the company that won the last decade. We are the company trying to win the next one. He physically tore up the old playbook in public. He killed sacred cows. He bet on cloud when everyone inside Microsoft told him cloud would cannibalize Windows. And he was right. He bet on AI partnership when everyone inside Microsoft told him to build it internal. And he was right. Apple's leadership, meanwhile, has been telling everyone for 10 years that Apple is the safest bet in tech, the most valuable company on earth, the one with the moat. And they have been right for 10 years. But right for 10 years is exactly how every incumbent dies. The trap is not being wrong, the trap is being right for so long that you forget what wrong feels like. And here is the part that most founders miss. Microsoft did not just win because they wrote a check. Microsoft won because they restructured the entire company around the new bet. Copilot is in every Office app. GitHub Copilot is the default coding assistant for millions of developers. Bing finally has a reason to exist. Azure became the default cloud for AI startups. Every single major Microsoft product line was rewired around the OpenAI partnership in less than 24 months. That is not a partnership. That is a bet the company pivot disguised as an investment. So here is the actual question for every business owner watching this video. Who in your organization is allowed to say the playbook is wrong? Not allowed to whisper it, not allowed to send it in a memo that goes nowhere, allowed to stand in front of the leadership team, point at the wall, and say, what we are about to do is going to make us look stupid for 2 years, and we are going to do it anyway. If the answer is nobody, you are running the Apple playbook. If the answer is one person who reports to you and you have not given them the air cover to be wrong out loud, you are running the Apple playbook. And the moat under your business is draining whether you can see it from your office or not. So the lesson is not that Apple is doomed. Apple is one of the great companies in business history, and it might still find a path. The lesson is that the difference between Microsoft and Apple over the last 3 years is not money, talent, or technology. It is the willingness to be wrong in public. That is the only moat that actually matters in a category shift. Likes ain't strategy, cash flow ain't strategy, distribution ain't strategy. Strategy is what you are willing to bet against your own incumbency to keep. Apple bet wrong. Don't be Apple.